Welcome to the Gaming Lounge podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Sebastian, and I'm joined by Dory. How's everything going, Dory?
It is great. It is awesome. I love having my card hacked and losing thousands of dollars on bets I didn't make, but otherwise I'm doing great.
And I love breaking my finger for the third time. So,
so you can see why we didn't have an episode last week, everybody, basically.
Yes. It's also nice. It was nice just to have a break and relax a bit and not have to worry about this, but I am excited to come back to it. There's a lot of news and a lot of rumors and things like that to talk about. There's a lot of new games to talk about. We're not talking about everything this week, but we are going to talk about future games coming up as well. First thing I want to talk about on this episode is the Final Fantasy 16 DLC, which Dory has been playing. Did you beat it?
I did beat it. God, my neighbors are well aware that I beat it. So I'm a big Final Fantasy 16 defender. Apparently those need to exist for some reason for one of the biggest franchises in all of video game history. But so I haven't been super blown away by the DLC so far. I thought the previous DLC was good, but it didn't do much. The boss fight was really intense and fun. And there was cool little bits of lore. For this one, they definitely upped their game. I think either they saw the feedback and maybe upped it a little bit, or just all along, I think all along, actually, the first one was going to be smaller than this one. This one's bigger. It's not huge. I think you can beat the DLC in, I want to say, 3 hours, maybe 4 if you're slow and doing a lot of side quests and stuff. I did basically everything. Did all the side quests. I know, people are going to be upset about this, but the side quests are not exactly revolutionary. You would think, with all the feedback they got from the main game, that they would have stepped it up a little bit. They do play off each other.
It was probably already being worked on early.
That's true. That's true. But still, you think they would have done something a little different, but not really. They do feel kind of samey. The best thing about this is you get a new power. This is the spoiler. It's the basic premise of the plot. But Leviathan comes into play, and you are able to get a portion of his power, just like with any of the other icons. It basically turns you into kind of a gunslinger. It's very cool, very different from all the other styles, because there's not really a long-range style that you can use normally. It's really fun to do, and you can stagger the enemies really fast. A lot of the enemies are kind of weak to Leviathan, or seemingly weak, and so you could just stagger them really quick. The main thing is that there was this child who is descended from the long lineage of Leviathan, the icon, and he's frozen in this whole thing, and you have to free him from it and free Leviathan from him. Obviously, ultimately, that culminates in a boss fight with Leviathan himself. I found this fight kind of frustrating in points. There's a point, especially, and they did this in the first DLC, and I'm very mixed about it, but basically, you have to, and I think they do this in the main game too, but I don't know, it's been such a long time, but basically, you have to get the purple bar down all the way before it does its ultimate attack, and basically one-shot kills you. And it's really frustrating, because the way you need to time this out is so precise, and they just expect you to know exactly how to use Ifrit, and they don't really remind you of the your powers are in the bottom right, and it shows you how many flare cap, I don't know what the fuck they're called, but basically health potions you have in the bottom left. But they don't tell you the finer points. There are some attacks that you can do from a big distance, and then also you can hold down one other attack to do more damage. So they just kind of expect you to know everything, and if you don't, it's a real pain in the ass. I got really frustrated with it and actually considered turning down the difficulty until I realized, I can do this. I can, do this attack, and then it will recharge much faster in the fight if I do it from very far, and then I walk up to them. But other than that, I mean, the fight was really fun and really challenging and intense, like usual. Very cinematic, very action-packed. The plot's good. All the character voices that you've come to expect are here, and they're solid as always. Ben Starr is incredible. I think overall it's a pretty good package. I don't know that both DLCs were worth $25. That's what I paid. I paid for the bundle. I wouldn't say it was that far off though of 25. Like I said, the side quests are fine. You get some gear upgrades, which is cool because I invested a lot of my time into blacksmiths and item management and stuff like that. So I have pretty much the best gear you can have in the game. It's fun too. You can get, as part of the DLC, you can get one of the main weapons from another Final Fantasy game. I don't remember which one it is. I want to say 13, but I could definitely be wrong about that. But it's like reskinned and recolored for Final Fantasy 16, so it looks a little more, Game of Thronesy. The graphics are still gorgeous, incredible. You forget how pretty this game is. I mean, I took a whole bunch of screenshots. Can't upload them to Twitter since PlayStation smartly got off that sinking ship. But I still would like them to be attached to that sinking ship so I could upload my photos much easier. But I'm sure there's a way to do it, and I'm just too lazy to find out. It was a pretty good experience overall. I had fun with it. I don't think it's essential. It does, there is some background lore, or there is some lore about, the main, like the end of the game stuff. They tie that in a little bit. Overall it was pretty good. It didn't like blow me away, but at this point, I feel like this is a good swan song for Final Fantasy 16. I really feel like I'm good with this game at this point. I don't feel like I need to go back and play another DLC or do anything else with it. If they released another DLC, which we're probably not going to do, I would, I don't know. I would actually like hesitate on that because I don't feel like there's much more they can do. Actually, Leviathan in the circle of all of the different icons that you can use, he's the last one. So I'm almost positive that's the last DLC. And so I think they went off on a pretty good note. Better than the last DLC. It didn't blow me away, but I did enjoy it. I think it's worth playing if you enjoyed the main game. And if you don't mind side quests that are kind of base and vanilla, kind of like the typical Final Fantasy 16 quest lines.
Yeah. Does it take place before the ending of the game?
Yes, it does.
There's a hint at the ending of the game, or is it kind of just like its own completely side thing? Like
it is its own side thing. They do reference the main antagonist and like why or why not they would, or why they would have left Leviathan alone, why they haven't done anything to him. So there's a little bit of lore sprinkling towards the end about like, well, why didn't the big bad come for this guy until, why are we beating him to the punch? So there's a little bit of like tying it into the end of the game. But, ultimately, it's very much its own thing. You don't have to have beaten the story or whatever. Obviously, you should be at a high level. They raised the cap to 60. I played for about 3 to 4 hours, and I got to level 51 or 52. So I can't even imagine the investment it takes for you to get to level 60. Nor do I think it's worth it. You do great damage at level 50. And I never had a problem except for with Leviathan. Himself, which obviously he's the final boss, and you're not even playing as Clive anyway, you're playing as Ifrit. So, like I said, pretty good. All the classic hallmarks of this game that you would want to see. I recommend it. If you can only get one of these, I definitely recommend this one over the other. Obviously, you get to keep the Leviathan power, so then you can just bring it into the rest of the game, and it mixes things up. Like I said, you become like a gunslinger, firing out like, basically you become Blastoise, like just hydro cannon here, hydro cannon there. It's very fun, very, very fluid, and very rewarding in general. So I had a good time with the power. Overall, the combat for me is still the highlight. Excellent stuff, at least in there, and the graphics and voices as well.
Is there anything else you want to shout out, or are you ready to move on?
I guess last thing I'll say is, I mean, I really feel like the whole discourse over Final Fantasy 16 was fucking ridiculous. I mean, as someone as an outsider, this was my first mainline Final Fantasy game besides Final Fantasy 7 when I was like 9 and got absolutely crushed by it. And never played Final Fantasy again because I thought they were all like that. I as an outlooker, someone on the outside, the whole thing seemed very silly. I think the game has a lot of good things going for it. There are definitely problems with it for sure. But for me, they never dragged it down too much. And I think I can say the same thing about this DLC, which was very pretty good in its own right. So yeah, go check it out. I can't remember the exact name of it. I want to say The Watery Depths, but I'm almost positive that's not the title of it. I don't know where I got the watery death, so I'm just Square Enix, call me. I can be your new creative director. But yeah, it was good, and I liked a lot of it. Just that Leviathan fight was very fun. I don't really like the whole, if you don't beat the boss in this amount of time, you are just dead. The checkpointing though was pretty good and forgiving for the most part. There was one part where I was like, oh, it sent me back a little further than I'd like. But overall, I had a grand old time playing as Ifrit one last time.
Yeah, I'm somewhere in the middle on the discourse of Final Fantasy 16. Like, Final Fantasy is my second favorite franchise in gaming. So I've played, I want to say all of them, but I played like 90% of them. And I understand the criticism because people say it's like Devil May Cry. It's like Final Fantasy May Cry. And
Yeah.
I can see that comparison. My biggest problem with that game overall was just the side quests. I thought like I just didn't like the MMO side quest where it was like killed 7 of these and fetch this and come back. You know, it was just the pacing was off for me in that game. But I still had a great time with it. It was in my top 10 games of the year. The cinematics were incredible. Like that was the best part of the game. I thought the story was really good. There's some parts of the story I didn't like. I didn't like the whole Ultima big bad guy pulling the string storyline. I would have preferred more of a Game of Thrones grounded kingdom storyline. But that's a Final Fantasy for you. So I liked Final Fantasy 16. I do think the discourse is overblown. Like there's aspects of the game that are just part of modern gaming where like squeezing through a wall. Like I understand why people don't like that because it's in almost every game at this point. But that's such a small nitpick. I think I'm not saying it's not valid criticism, but I think it's like overblown. Like it's not like you do that every 5 seconds either. But I do understand that criticism as well. So yeah, do check it out. I plan on playing it when this Final Fantasy 16 comes to PC. It's coming out at some point. I imagine this year. We'll probably get the DLC packaged with it, and that's when I'll play the DLCs. So I'll definitely check it out. I'm curious how it's gonna play on PC because one of the criticisms I have of the game, because when I played it, it was like right when it came out, and the motion blur wasn't great and had some performance issues. I know they patched it since then, but at the time, it definitely affected the game. It had like it was like Jedi Survivor. It was a great game or a good game that got affected by the performance issues as well. So I'm curious how it's gonna run on PC. So yeah, check it out. All right, so another game that came out, which is kind of a hidden gem. It kind of came out of nowhere. It did come on Game Pass day one, which is Another Crab's Treasure, which I am currently playing. I'm pretty far into it now. I think I beat a lot of bosses at this point. I beat like 5 or 6 bosses.
Jesus.
Now it's a Souls game, first and foremost. Now it's baby's first Souls game. It's very accessible It's for Dory. Yep. I like I said, I recently beat Sekiro not too long ago, and I've been playing Lords of the Fallen and Elden Ring. So you imagine this is a big. It's just like baby's first Souls game. It's a lot easier, basically. Don't get me wrong. I'm not playing on the hardest difficulty. You can change the difficulty anytime you want, but a normal difficulty. I'm not saying it's like a joke. It's not like you just hit the X button and you just. It's not Final Fantasy 16. No, I'm just playing. But it is. It is.
Come on! You should have said Kingdom Hearts 2. The joke was right there, or Kingdom Hearts.
No, I think Kingdom Hearts was more difficult than Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah.
But I think it is accessible, and I actually don't mind that because I think that adds to the game because I think it's a good introduction to Souls genre for people. I think I don't know word it. It's just very accessible, and I think it's a good way to introduce the genre to people. And I think people should definitely check it out. It's not that expensive. I think it's like $20, and it's on Game Pass, and it's really, really colorful. It has a really awesome art design. I really like I just bought a laptop recently, and it has a nice screen, and that game pops on that screen. It looks beautiful. I love the main character. He's very likable, like a little hermit crab. I like the mechanics of wearing shells of different items like throughout. Like there's tons of them. There's like, God, there's gonna be like 40 or something shells you can wear.
Yeah, something like 40. Yeah.
There's even a gun if you want to put that setting on.
Yeah,
it makes the game a joke too. If you want to do that, you can one shot everybody. But if you want to play it that way, it's on you. It's up to you. I haven't used. I only used it for like an achievement. Just the gun. There's an achievement for killing a crab with the gun, so I used it for that. But if you want to do it that way, then it's great.
Do you remember what the achievement was titled?
I don't. I have to look it up.
Oh yeah. No worries then. It's not a big deal. I figured it'd be a funny pun because they've done a lot of funny puns in this game.
I'd have to look, but
okay.
It's the storyline is pretty basic. A shark takes your, or it's like a, I don't know, I forget what they're called, but it's like a puppet shark that like snatches your shell, and basically you're trying to get it back, and you're trying to find the shark. He pops up randomly throughout the game and kind of teases you. And
I hate that asshole. I'm only like a few hours in. Seb's definitely ahead of me. I've only beaten the first major boss, but I hate that asshole. And I love sharks, so this guy's really... I don't even think he's actually a shark, though.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what he is, because like everybody's a real animal, and he's like this... He's like the toy, the plastic toy thing that we all had.
Yeah, one of those plastic toys that you like have a stick under, and like you can like grab, and then the mouth goes... I don't know what the fuck.
So I imagine there's some
here,
supernatural being or a human controlling. I don't know what it is, but it's probably gonna be something crazy at the end.
You got to fight a human at the end.
Because there are humans in this game, and we don't see them, but like they do drop trash into the ocean, and then like there's one scene where like there's trash day, and like trash rains on the city, and then all the crowds go crazy, like, oh my god, it's trash day, and they all like beat each other up to get the items and stuff. It's not that far into it. It's a little spoiler, but it's just a very charming game. It's a fun game. It's a Souls game. It's gonna be some difficulty in it. You have to dodge and parry, and don't get hit. There's waypoints like in terms of like it's like bonfires in Dark Souls. You rest up, and you do unlock fast travel, but basically you have to travel from point A to point B, and if you die, you get sent back to certain points. Now, it is a little more accessible. There's points where if you die at a boss, it'll say, do you want to respawn here? And you can say, yeah. So it's not too bad. It's definitely harder Souls games in that regard. I think the bosses are pretty simple. I've played, obviously, like I said, I've played way harder Souls bosses than that, but they do have a challenge, though. You do have to be on your feet. You do die pretty easily, especially if you lose your shell. You get like 2 to 3 shotted. You do have to utilize your shell mechanics as well. Dory, how are you finding the difficulty?
Yeah, so I want to preface this. I am an attacky crab. I'm going all in on attack. I haven't leveled up my defense at all. This is a stupid strategy. Don't be like me. But I wanted to see how hard I can hit. And the nice thing about this game too is that you can always refund your points and stuff like that. And so it took me about 15-ish tries. And a knocked over spaghetti container for me to beat the first boss out of frustration. That was towards the end when I was just about to beat him too.
To be clear, what boss was the first boss? Because there are
the first boss, I guess, would be the one where you get your first shell, right? That would be the first boss. So I guess the second major boss, who's the I guess spoilers, is the queen, right? I think I consider the second major boss. Queen. Yes, I did fight the queen, and it took me about 15 tries. That gunk really fucks you up. Like, it poisons you really fast. Yeah. And because I got to teach myself, like, how to, like, get into my shell more often, because I keep forgetting to, like, operate that. And you can find shells, like, everywhere. Seb didn't mention this, but you can find shells all over the map. You do not have to, like, be shy about parrying or riposting or just blocking so you don't take damage. Without my shell, I basically take one hit and I'm dead, which is fine. That's the way I want to play. So I didn't get mad about like, oh, she took me out in one hit, whatever. The only thing I got mad about, I think, was that there is one animation where she's like, this is the queen. She's like moving around like this, and it looks like she's just moving normally, and then all of a sudden, bam, brings her like claw hand down, and like that must have killed me. Like that must have been like a third of my death.
There are some mechanics in this game where bosses do a movement and it's hard to read what they're gonna do.
Yes,
so exactly. I did find that frustrating sometimes. There's I couldn't. There's some bosses I couldn't. It took me a while to get the pattern of the.
Get a read on them. Yeah, I had that trouble with the queen. I had her number a couple of times. I will say too, and reviewers have noted this as well. The camera could be a little finicky, especially if you
platformer.
Especially if you corner like one of the bosses. Like I cornered the queen at one point, She was like backing herself into the corner, but I had to like follow her because I had to kill her. And the camera just freaked out. I couldn't see anything. She suddenly like hit me with I don't even know what, and I was just dead. And I was like, well, that's just cheap. But that was like that's a minor issue, and it doesn't happen that often. But it is worth noting that the camera can freak out. Overall, I find this game very accessible. I have not used any of the accessibility features, although I should, because I get very stubborn and frustrated with bosses. I've implemented a system where I think I'll give a boss like about 10 tries. I think that's enough for me to like get frustrated but not like get mad. This is why I don't play Souls games, because I get like really super mad. Just ask him about how I get about Kingdom Hearts 3 super bosses.
If you can do Kingdom Hearts 3 bosses, you can definitely play a Souls game, I think.
Yeah, no, I know. It's just I just get so stubborn, and so like it just becomes a bad cycle of me not wanting to do the accessibility functions because I'm so aggravated. I'm not thinking straight. I'm thinking on emotion, which is not always a bad thing, but here it is. But yeah, the accessibility features are great. You can give Krill a gun. You can reduce damage by low, medium, or high. Basically, my system is like I'm going to give a boss, like a major boss, like several tries. And then I'm going to put the damage reduction on low and then medium and then high, and so forth. And eventually I'll just give Krill a gun if I can't fucking win. Yeah, just one shot and move on. But I really like it. I think it's a pretty good to great game so far. I love, like you said, the aesthetic, the animation. I think what's underappreciated about this game probably is going to be the story. I find the story very charming and cute. The writing is really fun. Like you said, Krill's a great character. He's a hermit crab who doesn't understand why taxes are a thing. I'm with you, Krill. I don't understand either. But the IRS is at me, so I can't argue with them. Not really. That's a joke. Yeah, he's just such a charming character, and everything around him. It's funny. He's like, there's layers to this, like an ogre or an onion, but like he's like a fish out of water, but he's a fish in water. So it's a really cool narrative. I really like it a lot. There's so many fish puns. Obviously, I love that. The game's just very lighthearted. It's really funny at one point where there's this moon shell knight or moon shell snail or whatever who helps you out and gives you like a skill tree and like gives you the save stations and the fast travel stuff. I wish there were more of them in the map, because sometimes it feels like there's a big amount of space of enemies between you and a fast travel, and it's like I'm just gonna run away because there's no point in fighting enemies. But at one point he's like, now that Krill has learned to harness his power to slaughter even more ocean animals, and Krill's like, I really wish you hadn't worded it that way. It's just really funny. So it's just very well written. I love the story. I love the characters. Wasn't expecting that. Although I had heard from the IGN review that was a focal point. I don't think the gameplay is anything like to write home about so far, but it's got enough variety. You've got your quick attacks. You've got your heavy attack. I just unlocked my first. Hi, Toby. I just unlocked my first power attack or whatever, like the crustacean crab attack, by pressing the right trigger. Obviously, you can get in your shell to block, and you use this thing called umami, which is like kind of like basically your magic attacks. And it depends. Your umami attack depends on which shell you're using. So I really like the one with the can because you can use the fizzle umami skill, and that adds a lot of stagger gauge to the enemies. And then of course, if you block at the right time, you can unlock parry on the skill tree, and then riposte, which leads you to counterattack. I'm still trying to master that, but yeah, overall, I find the game very accessible.
Yeah, there's a whole skill tree that you can unlock. You can also you can buy like insurance for your shells and stuff too. There's merchants in the cities. There's a big city.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should preface. I like literally just got told by the shark guy that I should go to such and such city. I don't even remember what the hell it was, but the first city you basically go to outside of the kingdom, if you want to count that. So that's basically where I'm at, and I know Seb's a little bit ahead of me.
Yeah, so I definitely recommend this game. It is, I don't know if it's in my top 10 games, but it is definitely going to be my best indie games of the year. It is really a fun game. totally recommend, especially if you're into Souls games. I know people see here Souls, they get a little turned off or intimidated. Trust me, this game is very accessible, very very accessible. There's difficulty options. You can change the damage meter. There's so many options. If you really want,
Yeah.
you can just buy a gun and just one shot everybody. If you want to do that,
Yeah.
you play this game anywhere you want. So this game is great. I definitely recommend it for anyone really, but especially if you like colorful, you like that Finding Nemo vibe, the colorfulness of the ocean, things like that. I really enjoy it.
And as my name is Dory, I'm legally required to enjoy that to some degree.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, the biggest I'm 2 or 3 hours into it so far, and the biggest recommendation in short that I can say is if I enjoy this game, you will probably enjoy this game, because Souls games are not my thing, and the closest I ever get to Souls games is playing Kingdom Hearts on Critical. Or fighting super bosses on Critical, where I mean you die in 1 or 2 shots, yes. Especially with those super bosses.
And as a Souls expert connoisseur, you know the opposite of Dory, I'd also recommend it because it's for everybody.
It really is, and I think the accessibility options are great, and I will probably have to use them at some point. I'm gonna try to push down that silly gamer pride of mine and probably use that at some point with a boss. But I'm really liking it. I think overall it's fun. I agree with Seb. I don't think it's going to be my top 10, but maybe. But it's possible. I don't know. I've only played about 20 games this year so far. So it's certainly possible, and not all of them were released this year. So.
Yeah, most of the games I beat this year are not from this year, so my top 10's gonna be tricky. But again, it's only May, and
I have
the summer.
It's gonna be May.
All right, let's move on now to some news. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Metaphor ReFantazio showcase that we got last week, which showed us a lot about the game. It is Atlus's new JRPG that's coming out. Basically, I'm not saying it's another Persona, but it's practically another Persona game. Everybody's excited for it. It was shown at the Xbox showcase, I believe, last year in the summer. Like Xbox has the marketing rights to this because Xbox and Sega have a good partnership, and so it is coming to Game Pass day one, but it's also coming to PC and PS5 and PS4 on October 11th. So it comes out this year in October. It's an interesting month to put it because I don't know what's going to be around that. October is always stacked, and I always get worried about October release dates because you never know what. All of a sudden, you have like 7 games to come out like last year. Remember last year we had Alan Wake and Spider-Man and Assassin's Creed and all that stuff. So it was loaded. All right, so actually before we start, Dory, what did you think of this game? So
I haven't played any of the Persona games. For a while that was because I'm not really into turn-based, and now it's more so there's certain aspects and themes in the games that I wasn't super happy at when I looked more into the games. Some of those features have been taken out as the games have been remastered, or because some of the games are kind of pretty old, especially 3 I was very interested, especially since I have more interest in turn-based games. First thing I want to say, that UI, holy shit. I haven't seen such a beautiful UI in my goddamn life. I'm pretty sure this is one of the coolest looking UI I've ever seen in a game. I actually have it open to it right now. It's got I think it's got the main character's face. It's got a whole bunch of options, scale, item, equipment, so on and so forth. You've got your money in the bottom right. You can see, it's just like the color palette and just the way things are highlighted. It's just like, again, I've never played any Persona game, so I have no experience with the UI. I think I've seen it once or twice, and I was like, oh, that's cool. That's very stylish. But here, it's like blowing me away. I don't know. I think I might just play a game if it was just like this. But just the way everything's highlighted, and just the way that it's accentuated throughout via colors or white or red. It's really well done. I could go on about it, but it really impressed me.
It looks a lot like a Persona UI, a lot like it. They're basically the same thing. It's just but it looks even better. It's Persona 5, but like times 5, times 10. It looks really nice. It's very, very appealing.
Yeah. So that was my biggest impression. I mean, the game has real-time combat mixed with turn-based, which I'm fine with. At this point, I can say that I like both, so that doesn't really matter to me as long as it's integrated well.
It's kind of similar to Final Fantasy VII Remake ish, because you can, if you wanted, you can like pause it and do a move in the middle of it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, you can kind of attack before the fight in real time, and I think you can get off a couple of attacks or whatever. And it's it looks like, at least from the official trailer showcase, that it's integrated pretty well, because like once you attack, you'll then like go into a battle. You can also like know like how powerful a given enemy is by like their shading or something like that.
All right. So what stood out to me was, first of all, the music.
Yes.
It's from the same composer as the Persona series, Shoji Meguro. There's a lot of Japanese names, so I apologize if I butcher any of them. But he's working on the soundtrack for this game, and this one has more of an orchestral sound now. It's not as like jazzy and poppy as like other Persona's games. This game has more of an orchestral.
Yeah. They wanted. I think the director said he wanted him to spread his wings a little bit, do something a little different, especially because it's more of a medieval setting.
Yep, and then also they got a guest artist to work on this game. They got Kota Kazuma, who did the art for Nier Automata, which I can see. I see that as well, and he helped with the in-game city concepts. And then they got Ikuto Yamashita, who did Evangelion. So that's a lot of cool. He worked on the ships. So that's a lot of cool names to have on this game. I mean, those are a lot of my favorite Japanese IPs. So that's cool. Also, this game has more of a focus on exploration than the Persona games. Persona games are very linear. You do get to explore a town or a city, but it's usually very like point A to point B kind of thing, and a lot of loading screens and things like that. This one has a lot of open areas and cities you can journey through. They did show us being able to skateboard on a magic sword. A lot of people were like really happy about that. It looked cool. And it is not an open world game, but it is quite big, which I like. I prefer. I'm not a big fan of open world games. I prefer games that just have an open area. So that's cool. There's also an election system. You're trying to get public support to be the next king. So that's where like the Persona elements come in, with the socialization. Every Persona game, you get better skills and better equipment, and more moves and things like that when you form a better relationship with your team. And this game's gonna have that element as well. You trying to sway public opinion in your favor, and you're trying to make a connection to both the rich areas and the poor areas. And the protagonist says, the director said that the protagonist comes from the inferior poor area, and so doing the quest for like the richer side, you gain favor with the richer side, so you gain popularity, and show the richer side that the poor side can get things done too. Also, this one allows you to travel through a whole world. This is like I said, it's not open world, but there's a big map where there's different big locations you can go to. The city is called Martira. I think it's Martira, a pastoral city or town that contrasts with the big capital city that you will work out during the early hours. I'm quoting Kotaku here. Hoshino says the goal with having different hub worlds is to give a player a sense of grander journey in which they see parts of the world that differentiate themselves from each other. So that's definitely different from Persona. Persona usually takes place in like one contained area. Sometimes you go off to a beach or something, but usually it's in the same city or school. Also, this game does have a ship called the Gauntlet Runner. That's the center of the whole world. It says inside you'll find a war room in which all your teammates can gather as you travel from place to place. That's pretty standard for a Persona game. It's like I said, it's not a Persona game, but basically. And here you can plan your journey as every time you travel, in-game time will pass, similar to Persona's calendar mechanic. So it does have that calendar mechanic that Persona games have. Getting to and from different places will take more than others. So Metaphor would become just as much about time management as gaining people's favors.
Yeah, this was something I was going to bring up earlier when you were talking about the elections. You can also win the favors of your teammates, and I believe it unlocks certain powers if you take the time. But I also think they said that it was a bit of a time management thing. You don't have all the time in the world to do it with all of your team members. You have to pick and choose like which styles you'll like the best and which archetypes you'll like the best.
Which is normal for a Persona game. Persona game, you're very time limited. You have to complete the main mission by a certain time, where you fail and the game's over. That's pretty standard stuff for that. So you have to be very careful what side quests you do, how you're gonna plan out your day. So make sure you save often, as well. Because you will get a bad ending if you do not do that correctly. I'm assuming this game will be no different. Also, let's see. We talked about the UI, and so Metaphor also has a job system called archetypes. And they determine a character's traits and abilities, but they also take the form, as Hoshino describes, heroic figures everyone possesses. However, one key difference for Persona is that archetypes are not locked to certain characters, so you can customize your party's loadout as you see fit. You will unlock more of these as you meet and bond with your followers. So I know, Dory, you're not super familiar. You don't play a lot of JRPGs, turn-based ones. If you don't know what a job system is, job system means like any class.
They do it in Infinite Wealth, or they do it in Infinite Wealth, right? With the job system, isn't it similar?
Any character can play any class, basically.
Right.
And I love that customization. I do.
Yes, I do as well.
So I am happy about that. So we'll see who. I typically go for like what fits the character's look. So if the character has like a swashbuckler look vibe to them, I prefer like a rogue type to them. If they have a mage vibe, there's always a girl that has like the healer vibe, and there's always the main character. The main characters typically, I prefer him to be like a knight or a rogue kind of character. It just depends. So we'll see. I'm very happy that I love job systems in games. It allows you to be fully customizable. So that's exciting, and I think that's pretty much it. Oh, there is a collector's edition if you want to buy all that stuff for $150. It has a soundtrack, the art book, pins of tea, the sticker sheet, cloth map, DLC vouchers for costumes, digital history of ATLUS's 35th anniversary, in-game items with the pre-order bonus, all that stuff. I usually don't buy that kind of stuff, so I'm not really interested in that. But so that's something there for people that are into that, and that is it. That's pretty much everything from the showcase.
They do mention some bounties that you can take advantage of within the cities, as well as weapon shops and inns. That's pretty standard fare. Like I said, it's more of a medieval focus than usual Persona likes or Persona games. I say Persona likes because also there is the other series with a really incredibly long name. I don't remember what it's called off the top of my head. More of a horror series, I think. Megami Tensei, isn't that also a Persona like, or
correct.
Persona is a Megami Tensei like? I don't remember.
Correct.
Yes, yeah. So anyway, it's all connected. I feel like I'm Charlie from It's Always Sunny right now, but it's all connected.
This essentially, and they're not the same series, but they borrow elements and they have the same design, same company.
Yes. Yeah. So, just one more time, I just want to really shout out this UI. It's so eye-catching. I'll definitely be looking for this. And did they say a release date? Oh, they did. 10/11/2024. So
October.
Or 11/10. Yeah.
October 11th.
October 11th. Okay, because I don't know. Some countries reverse that shit, so I don't know.
Actually, most countries do that. We like to be different and put the.
We like to be different. We got to use the metric system. We got to do this. We got to do that.
America's got to still fucking. We don't use the metric system. We're like the 3 countries that don't use the metric.
Well, the imperial system. Fuck, I got it too confused. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, we don't. It is October 11th to be clear, not November.
Great.
10.
That's right. That's why you mentioned Spider-Man and Alan Wake and everything else earlier. That's right. Okay.
Like I said, it's an interesting date because October is usually stacked, and this is a stack month is not a good time for a JRPG.
Yeah.
Because it's hard
So
to balance.
we'll see how it pans out, but I'm definitely interested and excited. I will be paying attention to reviews and might pick it up if it looks good.
Yeah, clear your calendar, no pun intended, for this game. It's gonna be this is gonna be at least a 50, 60 hour game. So be
yeah, that's true. I'm gonna have to say goodbye to all my friends for at least a week or two.
Yes. Oh, so you definitely interested in this game?
I am interested. I think it looks great. I think this is a good way for me to get into Persona without getting into Persona. Although I definitely might pick up Persona 5 Royale at some point too. If I wanna like the newest idea of what Persona is going for right now.
Sure.
But yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm definitely interested. I'm not gonna absolutely buy it, but I'm definitely interested, like I just said, and looking forward to scouring reviews and seeing how it fares. It looks incredible, and I don't see why it would be bad.
I don't know if they're still on Game Pass, but all the Persona games are on Game Pass. I think they took them off now, but they were on Game Pass. So, but even if they're not, they're relatively cheap at this point. They're always on sale for like $15. I think
Persona 5 Tactica and Persona 3 Reload are on there.
They took 5 and 4 off. They did have it on there, but they took it off. So
yeah, Persona 5 Royal is now $60, so you have to buy it.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate.
On CD Keys or whatever, or on Steam, it's usually on sale pretty cheap. So it's
nice.
Definitely something to get into when you have the time. All right, let's move on to another JRPG series that both of us love, which is Kingdom Hearts. Now, apparently, Kingdom Hearts is getting a animated movie. Now, for me, I wanted a live action one just for shits and giggles. I just want to see.
You are absolutely a gremlin.
I just want to see how they pull off Sora's hair in live action.
You know, we already have the Dragon Ball Z movie. I don't fucking want to see Sora. God damn it! I don't want to see live action.
Haley Joel Osment to play Sora, like how he looks right now as Haley Joel Osment.
God, no.
Give him the wig, keep the beard. Man, but that's just me. So Kingdom Hearts 4, we're all excited for Kingdom Hearts 4. We're waiting. Hopefully this summer we get it. But in the meantime, we are getting an animated movie, which I think is the right choice. Like, on a serious note, because obviously, if you did live action, it'd be really hard to pull off. I'm curious what it means by animated. Are we talking like CGI, or are we talking anime style? It's unclear.
Can't be good.
I'm fine with either way. I actually would like to see an anime version of.
Yeah, I want an animated version. What I'm disinterested in is this bullshit mix of live action and CGI, right? I'm not interested in this at all. I mean, I know that Looney Tunes Back in Action has its fans right now in retrospect, and like Space Jam and stuff like that. It's got nostalgia, but the second Space Jam definitely doesn't. But it's a really risky move to do something like this. Honestly, the only way I'm happy with it is if they subvert expectations and Sora and all the human characters are animated and Donald Duck and Goofy and Mickey are all live action. Now that, I want to see that.
That's even crazier.
That would be wild. It would be incredible, but they're not going to do it.
What if they actually just did regular people wearing regular clothes and then had the Disney characters all be CGI like that? Or would we have to have the buckles and the belts and the shoes?
You have to have the buckles and stuff. Nomura's going to have a fit if they don't at least have 50 buckles on set.
I'm curious how they would. I want to see what it look like in real life. Like, would it look like cosplay, or can they actually?
It's going to look like just really subpar cosplay, probably. I know I'm being really harsh on this. I love Kingdom Hearts, so I'm going to be harsh on like products that come out of that universe that I don't believe in. But it's also like. The website The Gamer says it's a bit of a monkey paw situation because we've all wanted news on Kingdom Hearts, anything from Square Enix, and then we get more rumors. I actually follow the guy I think who is referenced Daniel RPK, and he's the one who this rumor came from, but says it's full blown, a full blown movie and that's live action animated, and I'm just not looking forward to it. It's probably gonna suck. Maybe it'll be good. I don't know. Will I watch it? I don't know. I'm gonna look at reviews first, and if it's not god awful, maybe I'll take a look.
I'll watch it even if it's the worst thing ever, just because it's Kingdom Hearts.
I don't know. I never watched the original Dragon Ball Z, not the original, but the Dragon Ball Z live action one. I never watched it even when it came out in theaters. I think even as a teenager, I knew that movie looked like it sucked. But
It was terrible.
yeah, so I don't know if I would bite the bullet this time as a full grown adult, but maybe just for laughs and giggles. I don't know.
Yeah. So just to get the quote from Skylar Schuler, who's the Disney insider. He said, well, to get one thing out of the way, Disney is developing an animated Kingdom Hearts movie. While years back I had heard the idea was to do something on Disney+. More recently, I've heard the goal would be a big screen adaptation. But as of now, there are just rumblings and nothing has been greenlit. Disney may have more of an interest on actual gaming instead of developing movies based on video games. Prince of Persia and Need for Speed were both duds for Disney. So it's not even set. It's not even guaranteed yet. I'm sure they're talking about it. More than likely, I feel like Disney's more interested in gaming right now, in terms of in terms of their like gaming IPs, and I think Kingdom Hearts is definitely a bigger IP that I could see Disney being into for their gaming division. So definitely, I think it's more likely that they scrap this idea and give us just focus on Kingdom Hearts 4. I mean, obviously that's separate from Square Enix, but you get what I'm saying. I'm not sure this is really gonna happen, but if it does happen, I do hope it's animated, like an anime.
Yeah,
I want an anime style.
It needs to be straight up animated. You know, similar to the Mario movie. I mean, this is the same. This is the same fucking thing that's happening with the Zelda movie, right? I mean, you know, the director I think recently said that he's going to try to make it as best as possible, and somebody quote tweeted and said, "Cool, you can start by making it animated and not live action." Like, it's really hard to do this stuff right. I'm not saying it's impossible, right? Obviously, some live action movies have worked, or live action shows like One Piece, right? That came out and was really popular and well done. But those are the exceptions to the rule. It's very hard to do very magically orientated. You're working against a current here. The way the Kingdom Hearts works, you know, if it works, is that it's just very magically focused. There's lots of effects. There's lots of fantasy. There's lots of things that just don't exist in our world, including lots of Disney stuff. And it's just very hard to do that in a live action setting at all, for me. Yeah. I really just think this needs to be animated, and they need, you know.
We want live action just for the shits and giggles.
Seb wants it because he's an absolute troll. I don't want this movie at all. I just want them to work on Kingdom Hearts 4. I want
all the actors to play their characters. I want Haley Joel Osment. I want David Gallagher.
You want Bill Farmer in his goddamn 70s just in a goofy outfit? Yes. You absolutely heinous individual.
Give him the dog ears.
Jim fucking Cummings, who's like in his goddamn... Who's got to be in his 60s or 70s at this point, just walking around in a big Pooh Bear.
Wheel him in wearing...
Wheel him in? Jesus Christ. This sick man. I can't even believe I co-host this show with him. I'm getting out of here.
Give the guy the Donald Duck hat and the stick. No, two things as well. I love the anime style. I always love the art style of Kingdom Hearts in terms of like.
Yes.
I used to draw it all the time. I love it. I would love to see an anime style because you can do like a really cool anime with that. Also, I much prefer a series than a movie.
Yes.
Like if you did let's say adapt the first game, there's so many worlds in it. There's no way you can do that without feeling rushed. I mean, we're talking this is at least a 20-hour game that you'll be condensing into a 2 to 3 hour movie. It would just feel rushed. Now, it would be cool if they did a show, which let's say 8 episodes, and they actually had like the actual music from the Disney movies in it. Like, imagine if they actually had like the Tarzan soundtrack with Phil Collins like on an episode.
Let's go.
That would be pretty tight. I ain't gonna lie, but
yeah,
a movie though, if they do a movie, I don't want an adaptation of a game. I want like a side story or something that like something's happening between Kingdom Hearts 3 and 4 or something happening between 2
you know that shit's going to be canon too. You know Nomura's going to find some goddamn way to make that canon and say, oh, this is actually very important to Kingdom Hearts 4 if you watch this one particular scene backwards while your eyes are upside down.
It's going to be like Final Fantasy 15 where like you had to watch a whole movie just to understand the story.
Yep.
And they had to patch in like the space that they skipped They did a whole big time skip.
I wish they would do like a show based on like some of the mobile games, because those have really interesting storylines, but they're mobile games and nobody fucking plays them.
They won't do this because they want to market Sora, Goofy, Donald, Mickey, and all that.
Yeah.
But I would prefer if they did like a Kingdom Hearts movie that takes place before, like as you mentioned, the Keyblade War, like in the beginning, like a prequel movie. We kind of got that with the games in terms of like they basically turned the mobile games into like animated scenes, like CGI scenes, like the Master of Masters and all that. But they're not going to do that because it's not really marketable. So it's probably going to be Sora, like
Sora's on the Goofy.
Sora being the main character. So I don't know if it's going to be. It's probably going to be an adaptation, and that's not going to work in a 2-hour movie, in my opinion.
No.
But
you'd have to make it multiple parts, and I just don't feel like the audience is going to retain.
An anime show would be work better.
Animated show, especially Japanese animation, would be fucking sick as hell. I'd buy that on Crunchyroll.
I would love to see like a Japanese studio like animate a Disney, like do their own spin on Disney properties.
There's been a little bit of that, right, with the Jedi stuff, with the
You got the anime.
They did that, I think, for an episode or two. They made Star Wars into the anime for Visions. Was it Visions?
There's 2 seasons.
Yeah.
There's like multiple episodes. Yeah. Before we continue on, it's time for our ad break. So Dory, take it away.
This episode is sponsored by everyone's favorite feral goth girl, Gogo, the game mistress. Gogo is a professional GM and geek event organizer. She's an award-winning cosplayer, published author, voice actor, and general menace to civil society. Gogo has professional experience running D&D, Pathfinder, World of Darkness, Fate, Lancer, Thirsty Sword Lesbians, Warhammer 40k RPGs, and over 30 other systems for cons, companies, and private tables. If you pay her enough, she'll even run Fatal. You can hire her as the game mistress for your online tabletop group over at startplaying.games/game mistress. That's startplaying.games/game mistress. The link is in the description, along with her link tree. Mention our show to GoGo to get $5 off your first 5 sessions.
All right, so the next topic we're going to talk about is the ID at Xbox Stream showcase that we had. It was basically Xbox's indie showcase. They showed a lot of good games that interested me. Dory had a lot of games that interested her as well. Dory, you can start off with your list, please, and I'll say
for sure.
If we have any repeats, I'll butt in.
Yeah. First one I wanted to mention was Centum. Okay. Yeah, I think it's Centum. It's a point-and-click puzzler. This one had, if I remember correctly, and this was a little bit ago, but this had like a kind of a weird art style, kind of a black and white thing going on with the color palette. Here we go. It is what is it? It's RPG puzzle and exploration. I thought it looked really cool. It has a bit of a like an old school feel to it, like those 90s puzzle games that you would play on a Flash website.
It does.
You're kind of like exploring castle. It's disturbing too. It's got some like horror or dark fantasy elements, kind of like Labyrinth.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just dug it. I thought the art style was really cool. You are trapped and you must escape, but is that really the goal? Centum is an unreliable narrative-driven adventure where everything may be a lie. Hopefully the cake's not a lie. That's never happened before. So that stuck out to me. Yeah. Another game I'll talk about is Lost Records, Rage and Bloom. We've talked about this before, so I'll be very brief on this one.
Games as well. So.
Yes, this looks really good. I love the retro VHS tape esqueness of this trailer. I love kind of the irreverence of, you know, the if you found this, I'm already dead, haha, kind of thing. You know, the little poke and play, prodding of it all. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, we still haven't seen any gameplay, so it's hard to say a lot. I'm just as excited as I was before. It's from the same studio that does Life is Strange.
Don't Nod.
So what's that?
It's from Don't Nod. So
yeah, right. Don't Nod. Right.
Safe bet. The gameplay will probably be similar to Life is Strange. I don't see it being different than. I'm sure it'll have different mechanics, but I imagine the gameplay will be mostly the same. It's going to be a narrative game. You pick with dialogue choices. I'm sure. I think
the graphics look really nice. What? Sorry.
So I'm also very interested in this game, as I mentioned. I'm a big fan of these kind of games. I love Life is Strange. I quite like Nod's games mostly, and yeah, I love the '80s vibe as well. I guess the Stranger Things is still kicking off the whole '80s. Everything's in the
I think it's
'80s,
more 90s.
but this is more.
I feel like it's more 90s.
It's like it's kind of like late '80s, early '90s, maybe. It's probably
Yeah.
more '90s because I think of '90s. I think VHS, right?
Right.
Not so much '80s. Yeah,
Right.
I can see '90s to be honest with you, but it definitely has my interest, and this is most likely a day one game for me.
Yes, I'm very excited for it. Don't Nod makes some good stuff with the Life is Strange series. I always get them and Deck 9 confused about who makes which ones. But Don't Nod did the Life is Strange 2, which I've only played some of, but I really liked. Life is Strange, of course, which I loved. And I Jusant, which I enjoyed. I haven't played.
Banishers.
I haven't played Banishers yet, but I think I would enjoy that too. Twin Mirror wasn't well received, but I also want to play Harmony. That's on my list.
They did Vampire,
bunch of games,
which was okay.
Yeah, I didn't care for Vampire. Too slow for me, but some people really liked it.
And Don't Nod also claims that this game allows them to tell a story that Square Enix wouldn't allow them to do in Life is Strange. So I'm curious what that means. Like,
interesting, especially since it's such an episodic series. So, like, what could that mean?
They said that let them focus on the experience of growing up and tell a story in ways the previous franchise wouldn't allow them to. Like Square Enix.
I feel like, all right, that's a weird thing to claim because I feel like
we're talking like
right, like I feel like all the Life is Strange games are about growing up because they're all about teenagers.
Maybe they tackle even more serious topics that you.
Maybe. I mean, it already seems like it's going to tackle like murder, but like
maybe it's
the first game was about children. What?
Yeah, I mean, the first game was about like girls getting
abducted, right? Like drugged and abducted. I mean, you can't really get much more dark than that. Even when I was playing it the first time, I was like, "Holy shit, this got really dark in a hurry."
Yeah, I don't think they get raped. They just get like drugged.
No, they don't. They shy away from that. They just they get photographed, which is still really fucked up.
Sure.
And then I think they get killed.
They do.
I think
that's how
they do. Right. So,
spoilers. That's what happens to Rachel.
Yeah.
And almost Max.
So. All right. Anyway, here's the next one. Key Locker, turn-based cyberpunk. Apparently, I've got to love everything with a key in it, from Kingdom Hearts to this game. But no, this game looks really fun. I love the vibes. The vibes are immaculate for this one. It's a really kind of, it's got that cyberpunk aesthetic going on. So it looks really, techno and stuff like that. It's turn-based. I like what I saw about it. I usually like cyberpunk stuff because that's almost always a good excuse for for developers and publishers to get more political and talk about technology and stuff like that. But yeah, it's got some rhythm elements to it as well. And you can download the demo right now, actually, which I'm going to. Thank you, Steam.
Yeah, it's cyberpunk, but it's like anime style.
Yes, it's anime style. It's got it calls itself an unforgiving turn-based rhythm art JRPG. So there you go. I'm definitely going to check it out at the very least. Maybe it won't be for me. Maybe I won't like the rhythm elements, or maybe I'll find it too unforgiving. But it really caught my eye with its aesthetic and its general vibes. Second to last. Sorry, although the last one is kind of a throwaway because we've talked about it before. But I thought depersonalization looked really cool. This is a let me get out my notes here. This is a horror-based game. It is a horror-based RPG, turn-based RPG. So another turn-based RPG. Let me see if I can find it on Steam just so I know what the hell it looks like. No, that's different depersonalization. Seb, do you remember this one?
I do not.
Okay. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, here we go. So it's like got a really creepy aesthetic. It's got kind of like anime stuff going on too. It's also like low polygon, like kind of reminiscent of like old like PlayStation 1 or maybe PS2 games. It's got some turn-based action. Yeah, it's really kind of fucking weird. I don't know. I was really into it. So I believe it was in early access for a little bit, and then and now it's like out, but I'm not completely sure. Just because I'm doing this on the fly right now.
No worries. Is that everything?
Last one I want to mention. 5 games are headed to Game Pass. This was the one. Oh, this is the one from Gamera Games. That's why you probably don't remember, because there's a whole bunch of them right next to each other.
It was like the
but anyway,
yeah, it was like the montage.
Yeah, it was the compilation. All right. Anyway, sorry. Last one I want to mention is Dungeons of Hinterberg. We've talked about this already before. I love the aesthetic of the game a lot. It looks like a lot of fun to play. I'm not sure if I'm huge on the puzzles, but I can be persuaded if they're intuitive and interesting and fun to do. But that was the highlight of this trailer, was the puzzle aspect of it. I guess the story is that the main character is dealing with burnout, and so she decides to become a dungeoneer or whatever, or a dungeon adventurer, and decides to do that in this little town called Hinterberg. So there's the story and motivation for you. Don't you ever just want to deal with burnout by becoming a dungeon explorer and fighting monsters? I know I have. But anyway, the aesthetic is sick. I can't remember exactly what it reminds me of, but it's a very kind of comic booky feel, I think.
It kind of reminds me of Adventure Time, maybe.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of that.
It has that vibe for me. This is one of my games as well. Now the puzzle is kind of a turnoff for me. I'm not a big puzzle fan, and the puzzles kind of remind me of like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom kind of puzzles, where there's like a lot of physics mechanics and like shapes and opening up a gate by blocking it with a block or something like that, or avoiding lasers. But other than that, though, I think the aesthetic looks great. I love the colors. It looks really fun. It's definitely something I would definitely play. It comes out in July 18, so it's a good summer game. We talked about this before on the podcast. It was on another Xbox showcase, and it definitely catches your eye. It looks good, for sure.
All right, that's my last one.
All right, so I won't say there's a million games in this showcase that I wanted to play, but there's definitely ones I wanted to shout out. First one was Astor Blade of the Monolith, which is like a 3D Zelda game. It's like it's an action RPG. It actually comes out this month, May 30th. It looks a lot like a Zelda game. Just more indie. I really like the aesthetic and the colors, and I like the way the character looked. It looked pretty cool. I like the trailer for it. The gameplay looks pretty fun. Looks very action packed. A lot of things going on screen. So that caught my eye. The other one that caught my eye was 33 Immortals, which is basically like is claimed to be like basically multiplayer Hades. That's exactly what it looks like to me. That was also another Xbox showcase. I've highlighted that before as well. The closed beta. So it says crowd-based action RPG that goes into closed beta on May 24th. So you can actually play it this month in closed beta form. It's a top-down game where you basically team up with a bunch of players, a bunch of people on screen, and fight like demonic monsters, monsters, and a lot of shit happens on the screen. Like there's a lot of there would be like something like a tile out on the ground, you have to move out of the way. It just throws a lot at you. It's a perfect game if you have a bunch of friends and you want to hop on and you just fight like a big monster. One of the trailers shows like you fighting Lucifer with like 3 heads. It looked really cool. I'm guessing that like you play with random people. Like when you play with 33 people, I'm sure everybody's a different player. It really stands out to me. The art style looks very similar to Hades. That's something I'm definitely interested. Any interest in this game?
I do. I love the aesthetic, love the art style. I, of course, just like every other millennial, have actually 32 friends waiting and willing to play roguelite at any time to fight Lucifer. So I think this is a slam. No. Yeah, I mean, this is a really cool idea. I don't know how well this is going to work in practice. but they said that even you can still win even without 33. But it doesn't really feel like 33 if you're not playing with 33. Like, does it feel like the title of the game is being lived up to if you don't have all the people with you? I don't know. It seems like an odd choice. I don't know. Hopefully they give you like NPCs or make it incredibly accessible through crossplay and lots of marketing, because this is a big undertaking and a very risky one. I mean, I applaud it, but I don't know how well it's going to work.
Yeah, especially because 33 player. I mean, the camera is very zoomed out, so everybody can fit on the screen. But at the same time,
it's chaotic as hell.
That's very chaotic. Yeah, but I imagine it probably looks that way. Only like it focuses on you only. So like if the bottom of the screen doesn't really matter because it's where you're at. So I'm sure everybody has a different angle of where they're at. So it probably won't be as bad from your perspective, but definitely something I'm curious how they're gonna pull off. All right, another game I want to talk about is Farah: The Sundered Tribes, which was a game where you basically fly around and grapple on things. The art style looked amazing. The colors really pop. The mechanic of gliding around looked awesome. I do have concerns about the gameplay in terms of like it looks very floaty. The way they run is very floaty. And they got to clean some things up with the performance, but the idea looks amazing. The way you can just hitch onto there's like a flying whales in the sky and you're just flying with them, and the world looks seamless. That really caught my eye on this game. I'm curious what more there is to this game besides just flying around and stuff. There is some elements of combat because you fight like these monsters and you basically swing like Spider-Man on the side of buildings and stuff. You're fighting like these big monsters, kind of like Shadow of the Colossus. So it really caught my eye. If they can just clean up the floatiness a bit, this can be a really cool indie game for sure. I was really into that. I guess it does have colony building elements as well, and it's a survival game, so I that kind of turns me off a bit though. I'm not a big survival fan. I don't like when you have to collect resources and you get hungry or something. I hate that kind of stuff, but it definitely caught my eye. Another game was Tales of Iron 2: Whiskers of Winter. I never played the first one, but what I'm seeing from here, it looks like a side-scrolling Souls game. It has a really cool dark aesthetic to it. I was really digging it. I guess all the characters are like animals, like rodents. I just love the whole gothic vibe to it. It looks really cool. It's definitely something
stood out to me too. It's not my kind of game for obvious reasons, but I just think it goes so fucking hard, and I'm not sure it needs to.
Yeah.
But fucking Whiskers of Winter, or what the fuck ever, is just like so unreasonably hard for a game about rats in the winter. But I don't know. It's just funny to me that they're like, this is a crushing Dark Souls game with mice. It's like, all right, guys, like let's settle down. All right, your main protagonist is a rodent. But it does look pretty badass. I mean, killing that bat looked pretty cool. So I mean, I can't hate. But I just think it's funny.
Right. All right. And so that's everything for me. The other ones that Dory already mentioned. So yeah, it was a good showcase. I was pretty happy with it. I do hate the presentation though. I did not like the showcase itself. I just thought IGN really just dragged it out with the commercials, and I didn't think the hosts were that interesting. Definitely.
Yeah, they felt like the most hostiest hosts that had ever hosted. They were fine, but
yeah, it was just very standard. I don't need to be entertained by the host, but at the same time, if you're gonna do hosts and have commercials and things, you better like really bring it, and they just did not. So I would have just preferred they just did game after game after game, but whatever. But overall, I was happy with the game shown. A lot of cool indie games. If people were to say gaming is dead or dying or there's nothing to play right now, you just don't play enough indie games. I think I feel like the only people that say that only play certain AAA games. This is a great time to be a gamer. A lot of new games. All the games we mentioned in this topic were very diverse from each other. They all look cool, have a cool aesthetic, very different. One's gothic, one's colorful. One has top down, one is side scrolling. There's so many different genres here that there's plenty of cool indie games to play. and a lot of them are coming out this year, so that's exciting. A lot of they come out in the summer, which is also cool because we don't know anything what's coming out in the summer. So I'm definitely interested in a lot of these games. So, yeah. Dory, what'd you think of the showcase overall?
Good. I just skipped past the ads and I just kind of rolled my eyes at the hosts. I mean, they were fine, but whatever. The games themselves, they're like I said, there was a mix. Some new games I hadn't seen before that I was interested in, but a couple of them were just repeats. I felt like there wasn't a lot here that I hadn't seen before. Obviously, with the exception of the games that I had already mentioned that we haven't seen before, like the Cyberpunk turn-based one, or the puzzle game, or the other turn-based game one. So yeah.
All right, so let's move on to our final topic of the night, which is in celebration of Star Wars Day. Today is May 4th.
Today is May the 4th.
So May
we
the 4th
perfectly planned this out expertly.
So happy, yeah, definitely not the last second. I was like,
absolutely.
I was like, oh shit, it's May 4th. I didn't realize it was on Saturday. You know, I was kind of in a way I was kind of disappointed because I wanted it to fall on a school day because I would have loved to like go to school wearing like bring a lightsaber or something. And be a Star Wars nerd for a day. But
gotta wait 2 years for that.
The next best thing for that. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's true. So the next best thing to do on the podcast. So today we're gonna celebrate Star Wars by talking about our favorite and the best Star Wars games. There's many Star Wars games. Star Wars is just as big in gaming than it is in the movies and shows as well. And so I'll let Dory kick it off first. We'll go on instead of doing like 5 games in a row, we'll just do one at a time. So
sure,
Dory. So what's your first like favorite Star Wars game?
Close, honestly. With Jedi Survivor coming out, I think that is really one of my favorite Star Wars games of all time. But I'd be lying if I said I can't pay any disrespect to the GOAT of Star Wars games. We're gonna start off hot with KOTOR. Okay. You know, I love KOTOR a lot. I know the gameplay doesn't hold up as much, but I can forgive that because everything else about this game is so masterful in its execution. I played it for the first time, I want to say, in 2017, 2018. It's one of the last CD-based games I think I got. I think I got it from a friend or something like that because I didn't have any other way to play it. And KOTOR is just one of the best video games of all time, not just one of the best Star Wars games of all time. The story is incredible. Unfortunately, I did know about the twist. But it didn't really take that much away from the game because that's only a small part of a huge game that is just so much fun to play. Sure, the combat doesn't hold up great, but it's not terrible and it's certainly doable.
It's passable, I think today.
It's passable.
Yeah.
So I don't think it takes so much away that you're like, oh, like I really got to wait for a remake, whenever that's going to happen. But I just love it a lot. It's BioWare really at its finest. And obviously they'd go on to do Mass Effect, and the relationships you had with your party members, so to speak, was really great as well.
Yeah. KOTOR walks, so Mass Effect can run, basically.
Absolutely. That's what I'm trying to say, y'all. That is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. KOTOR is the greatest Star Wars game ever made, in my opinion. I'm totally with Dory. KOTOR. I have a Revan statue right behind me. Revan's my favorite Star Wars character. He's amazing. It has the greatest twist, one of the greatest twists ever in video games, which everybody knows at this point. That you were Revan at the whole time. And in terms of like the RPG mechanics, it still holds up. I was playing it recently. It's amazing. Like the storyline's amazing, the dialogue's amazing, RPG.
The side quests are amazing. I think the only thing that sucks about that game is the pod racing, right? It's not even pod racing. I think I did as little of that as possible. I was like, oh, I don't know what this is doing in this game.
Sure. And yes, gameplay is king, but this is one of those games where the you can live with the gameplay and enjoy everything else and just get through the gameplay. The gameplay is not great. It doesn't hold up as well. I don't even think it was great back then, to be honest with you. I've played better games like, in terms of gameplay at the time, in like 2003. I mean, this is the time I'm on the Halo and stuff as well. So, but if you ignore that, everything about this game is a masterpiece. I consider this game a masterpiece. It's my top 20 game of all time. It's one of those games I recommend it to everybody, even if you're not a big Star Wars fan. Everything about this game is great. So yeah. All All right, so another game I want to shout out is Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast, which not it's not I'm not saying it's one of the best Star Wars games. But it's definitely a good one. I don't think I think for me it's more about this is more about nostalgia.
Yeah.
It's a good first person shooter. I think it's fun. I think it still holds up a bit, but it definitely shows its age a lot more than other games. I love Kyle Katarn. I think he's a great character. I really wish Disney would bring him in the canon. I love I love the characters in that game. I love all the villains. I love the cast of the villains in that game. They're very unique. The Twilight guy that's really goofy with the 2 lightsabers. There was the lady that was cool. There was the guy that floats, he gets cut in half and then he's floating. And then there was one guy that's he's like a martial arts kind of Jedi, like a young guy. And then the main villain himself was really cool with the bandana. He's blind and covers his eyes. He's with the Force. It's just really cool. I love the whole good. That also had the dark side and light side endings, like different endings, even before KOTOR did it. So that was cool.
And before the Force Unleashed did it.
Right. So it improved. I think it improved on the first game, Dark Forces, like I talked about in the podcast not too long ago. It improved all the elements of that game and created a really cool really cool story.
I mean, it basically revolutionized how lightsaber combat could work. And I think honestly, this game walked so a lot of other Star Wars games could run.
Yeah.
I remember playing this with a mouse and when I was a teenager or something like that, or maybe a little younger. I love the heck out of this game.
I was like 4, so.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so maybe. So, okay, 97, so I would have been 6. I must have played it later. I must have played in the 2000s then. I was maybe 10 or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I have such positive memories. This is I think would be number 5 just for nostalgia. I haven't played this game in forever. I have no idea how it holds up. I still hear good things about this game all the time on Star Wars lists. And it was such a positive memory for me at the time. I loved it so much. I love the lightsaber combat. The blaster combat was improved. I mean, the graphics were a little bit better. Everything was better in this game. And I would go over to my mom's friend's house, and I remember one time I went out of my way to bring the CD with me so I could play it at her mom's computer or my mom's friend's computer, so I could still play it while I was over there. I was obsessed with that game when I was younger. I got lost a lot. I was a kid, so maybe I just didn't know what I was doing. But I remember just walking around endlessly, fighting stormtroopers, looking for anything. It's just so fun. I have such fond memories of that game. So yeah, for me, on nostalgia level, absolutely.
All right, Dory, what's your next one?
Yeah, I mean, I said that I basically gave it away, but I said this would be my number 2. I really think Survivor is one of the best Star Wars games. It's excellent. It's not perfect or masterful, I suppose, is my 5 out of 5 ranking. Yeah, there you go. I think he is, such a great character. And his relationship in that with the Night Witch sister, I'm not remembering names right now. But it's just one of the most compelling. I felt them teasing in the first one, and by the second one, I was in a fucking fandom desert of starving. I was like, I need you two to get together and just kiss already. Yeah, I mean, the combat is improved. The open areas are improved. The mobility is so much more improved. It feels so much more natural to be traversing. I think it has one of the best, coolest interactive cutscenes of all time when you're going up and around the streams after one of the sand levels. I forget what's exactly happening, but basically there's giant force behind you, and you're using all these force powers and environmental stuff to jump away in slow motion. It's so cool. The lightsaber fights are incredible. It does have some Dark Souls elements that I'm not a huge fan of.
It's basically a Souls game. I would say it's a Souls game.
Yeah. Or Souls-like game.
Souls-like, yeah.
But I ultimately ended up loving it despite that, not because of it.
Sure.
I think it's similar to another Crab's Treasure, very accessible in its Souls elements. And so I don't think it hurts it that much. Voice acting, the storyline, the twist. Good Lord, that twist towards the end took me out of my seat. I had somehow not been spoiled on it, so I was screaming.
Sure.
It was huge. This was a lovely game, and I know when it came out, it had a lot of bugs. So that's part of also the reason why I think it's just excellent and not like a 5 out of 5, because I can't forgive that. You shouldn't. It's one of the biggest franchises in media right now or ever. You shouldn't be coming out with a game in that kind of state. That's just not acceptable. But they did fix it down the road, and they added really cool things. Plus, the side quests are really cool, and the characters. I go on and on. But for me, it's probably the second best Star Wars game of all time.
Yeah, just be clear, my list is not in order. I'm just outside KOTOR being number 1. Jedi Survivor is definitely one of the best Star Wars games. I think the letdown for me was the performance, but outside the performance, I think the gameplay was great, the storyline was great, the animation was great, the customization of Cal was great. I love the cast of characters. It's one of the best things, one of the best Star Wars games of all time for sure. I think it's fantastic. I love the first game, and I actually think it improved on the first game pretty well, very well. So, because for starters, it was more, it was easier to navigate and not as easy to get lost like the first game. First game, the back traveling was so bad. I used to do a lot. But so yeah, that's a great one. Basically Jedi Fallen Order 2. I just want to shout that one out because I put them together at this point. It's like a saga.
Yeah.
So that one's great for the same reasons as Jedi Survivor. I think Jedi Survivor is better.
Yes.
And for me also, I want to shout out. I have a lot of them. Just to be clear, I have like over 10. There's a lot of Star Wars games that I love.
I only have like 5.
Another one I want to shout out is Star Wars Battlefront 2, the original 2005 one. I used to play that game so much on PC.
Same.
So much. My friend, I used to go to my friend's house all the time. We used to play Battlefront 2, and I used to love that you can play as any of the characters from the movies. You could be Boba Fett, Palpatine, Chewbacca, Han Solo, Princess Leia. Like it was so much fun playing that. It was addicting. I loved everything about that game. I just played it recently. I beat the campaign on the remaster collection that they released this year. Wasn't great, but it still holds up mostly well though. I think it's addicting. It's one of the best multiplayer games I ever played. One of the best third-person shooters ever. You can play it in first person, but I prefer third person. It's the vehicle combat is amazing. Everything about it is awesome. Like the map is fun. The graphics don't hold up very well, but the gameplay is so much fun that you kind of forget the graphics are not great. But what did you think of that game, Dory?
Yeah, I loved that game. I remember once. I think I've told this story before, but this is the one I always remember. I was on one of the planets as a clone trooper, and I think it was an online game maybe, but I think it was just me on my team, and there was a whole bunch of other like CPU characters. I was basically by myself, and so I basically camped by a respawn point, respawn point, and just picked them off. Like the other I think it was CPU. I don't think it was like actual people. And the CPU is like notoriously dumb in that game, right? So
yeah.
I don't feel that smart, but I was a kid, so I feel a little smarter now that I remember that part. And I ended up winning the whole thing just by picking them off one by one because they kept coming up to me trying to capture the point, and I'd be like, nope, and I would just pick them off. Obviously, the lightsaber clashes with the heroes and villains was iconic. That's where I really got my love of General Grievous when I realized how much he fucking ruled. That and the Gennady Tartakovsky, I'm going to absolutely butcher his name, I apologize. The creator of Samurai Jack did his version of the Clone Wars before the Clone Wars was on Netflix or a movie or whatever. Those two things in concert made me fall in love with General Grievous as a character. Just so fucking cool and badass and make him so menacing. And then the third movie came out and made him look like a fucking joke. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, I mean, I tried to go back. I played the tutorial of Battlefront 2. The gameplay for me didn't hold up. It felt very clunky, and very kind of weird to aim around. I felt like I was walking through mud as I was aiming. This is just me. I have a lot of nostalgia for it, so I was very disappointed in my experience with Battlefront 2. The not remastered, but whatever, the re-release collection that just came out. I played through the tutorial and I'd already seen all the bad press, and I wanted to see for myself how I felt, and I was like, this doesn't feel good. Like, so I stopped after the tutorial, but I always will have those memories. I loved it so much. I mean, it was insane. Like, you're doing Grand Theft Auto in space, and you're stealing like other people's, the Imperial spacecrafts that you could never fly around in any other game, and you could take the TIE bombers, and you could like mess up these huge ships. I mean, it was so cool. So yeah, love it. Definitely a nostalgic favorite for me, but unfortunately doesn't hold up.
All right, Dory, what's your next one?
Yeah, I want to shout out KOTOR 2. I know this one gets a lot of flack. I think undeservedly to some extent, but it was really rushed because I think Lucas Games or whatever wanted Raven Soft or whatever they were to like finish the game in a hurry, so their development time was really short. They had reused a lot of assets, and certain parts of the finale never got finished until modders took over, like years and years later. I still think this is an excellent game in its own right. What's that?
It was my I think it was my introduction to Obsidian.
Yeah. It's excellent in its own right. It's not, they don't really do much to fix the gameplay. So the fact that it takes some hits on the story and the gameplay is just not good. But I also find it hard to hold that against the game, or the game devs, and the game itself, because unrealistic expectations lead to bad results. I think it's a miracle that KOTOR 2 is as good as it is. I still think it's a very good game. Unfortunately has some issues, especially with the ending, which was cut all over the place, and just some bugs here and there that weren't in the first one. I still had a lot of fun with it. I still think it's a worthy successor. Maybe not as worthy as it should have been,
sure,
but I digress. Still really love KOTOR 2.
Yeah, KOTOR 2, I didn't get to beat the second one, but I do plan on it at some point. I do have a Darth Nihilus statue as well. Darth Nihilus is one of the coolest Star Wars villains. Like, he's like basically a bunch of red dust and mist together in a mask. Like, he's so OP, basically. I don't know how to explain him. He's evil. It's a step down from the first game. The first game is a masterpiece. This one, it's not bad by any means. It's good. I so great, but it's not a masterpiece. I think that's why people criticize this game. It was rushed, as you said. They kind of they released it in incomplete state, but it is one of the best Star Wars games. And if you like KOTOR 1, you definitely need to play this one as well. All right. I have a lot of games to mention. Next one I'm gonna.
Seb, I only got one more, buddy. So.
All right, no worries. Another one I want to shout out is Star Wars Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. So I'm sticking with the Kyle Katarn train here. I got more. Jedi Outcast 2 was an awesome Star Wars Jedi game. It was third person. You could play first person as well. The storyline was great. The gameplay was a lot of fun. That was one of my favorite PC games. I remember the advertisement for this game a lot. I was really excited for it because I know, as I mentioned, Dark Forces 2 was really awesome to me, and it's a continuation of that. Because basically Kyle Katarn is the main character of like 4 games or 5 games, and this was the next one, the sequel, and it did a lot of awesome Jedi stuff. Like third person combat was awesome. Storyline was great, and the music was cool, and things like that. They released a remaster of it not too long ago, like maybe 2 years ago or whatever, on all the consoles and everything. So definitely check it out. It's definitely one of the best Star Wars games, and it set the stage for the next game I'm going to talk about, which has probably my favorite lightsaber combat. Like, they were so addicting in the next one, but it definitely set the stage for the next game I'm going to talk about. So Dory, what's your last one?
Yeah. Last one I want to mention, and I have a much shorter list than Seb just because I have a hard time relying purely on nostalgia. Just for me, I want to see how the games hold up and stuff like that. And also, I mean, outside of the big genres, I never played the stuff on GameCube, and I never played the old PC games, and I never played like TIE Fighter or any of those like flight sim games. I didn't get into Squadrons, So I stuck a lot with the big ones. But one side game I did play was Republic Commando. I love the shit out of Republic Commando. Underrated, great tactical FPS game. Underrated multiplayer. I loved playing multiplayer with my friend Justin. That was the shit as a teenager playing that game. It happens in the prequels, but it's not really like it's pretty much outside of like the whole stuff with Anakin and whatever. So it feels really, really fresh. You get everything from the clones' perspective. It has a really fucking sad ending that I wish they would retcon, just because it devastates me every time. But it's so good, and it plays into the prequels really well. I'm a known hater of the prequels, but I mean that's not to say there's nothing that can be salvaged from it. Obviously, if that was true, we wouldn't have gotten the excellent Clone Wars TV series that was computer animated, and obviously we wouldn't have gotten video games like this. There's a whole ass section on the Trandoshan ship. Wow, why do I remember Trandoshan? The Trandoshan ship that's basically survival horror for a quick 5 seconds. That rules. I don't think we've ever gotten anything like it before in a Star Wars game. Just love it. I have such fond memories of this, and I went back and played it on PC a couple years ago. Still holds up. Still a really good game. So Republic Commando, definitely pick that one up. It's not as underrated anymore, but it used to be like super underrated. I think now people are talking about it more and more in the conversation as a great, underappreciated Star Wars game. But with that re-release, it's definitely found its way into the hearts of many more, as it should. It's a really great game. Excellent voice acting, a surprisingly solid story, and really good action-packed combat.
All right, so I'll be talking for the rest of the topic. So the next game I want to talk about is Jedi Academy, Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, the final game in Kyle Katarn's games. Jedi Academy has my favorite lightsaber combat ever. The multiplayer was insanely addicting. It's so good that people play this game to this day. Modding community is very popular, loves this game. It plays so well. It's so smooth. Like just the fact that like the swinging the lightsabers is amazing. Like the slicing, you can slice people in half. It's so cool. The customization is awesome. You can play as like the double blade lightsaber or the double lightsaber. Only game that did something similar to this was Jedi Survivor or Jedi Fallen Order. These are the only two games that live up to the lightsaber combat of this game. This game also had customization of the character. It was very like similar to KOTOR. You customize your own character to be a boy or girl. It had a cool storyline, cool levels. Jedi Academy is one of the greatest Star Wars games, especially one of the best Jedi games for sure. So definitely play that one as well. Another game I want to shout out is Star Wars Galaxies, which was one of my favorite MMOs ever. Star Wars Galaxies was so good when it went at its peak. It was one of the greatest MMOs I ever played. The community was incredible. The way you can build your own town and start a neighborhood randomly. You go anywhere on Tatooine, for example, or Naboo, or wherever, and build a settlement, and you can just hang out with your friends and play music. I've never played a game, even to this day, no MMO has ever reached that level of community. It was insane. The customization where you could be a bounty hunter, where you could tame a Rancor. It's exploration. Like literally, I'm not even exaggerating. They just threw you on the planet, and it was like widespread. You can go far, 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 anywhere around the planet. That game.
Would you say, Seb, that you can go far, far away?
I'm trying to avoid that pun, but yeah. But yeah, I played that when I was like 10 or 11, and oh my god, it was so good. And they completely ruined it. It took place after episode 3, in between 3 and 4. And what they did is it was starting to lose numbers, so they brought Jedis into it. Now the cool thing about this game was very few players. This is MMO, right? So a lot of people playing it. there was a holocron somewhere, and if you found it, you could actually unlock being a Jedi. But only a few select players found it, and it was a lot of work. And it made being a Jedi really unique and rare, which makes sense, right? Because they're all being hunted by the Empire at this point. And then all of it, but they ruined it and made it casual, and they just let you pick a Jedi class right at the beginning, and then you had thousands of Jedis running around, while this is like the peak of the Empire, where like they're hunting down Jedis, and you just have Jedis running all over the place. But it was really cool because my guy was a bounty hunter. Because bounty hunters are my thing. I love bounty hunters and Mandalorians. And you can actually, as a bounty hunter, you can actually get a player's name if they were a Jedi, and you can hunt them down. So they'd just be chilling at their house or whatever, and you can just show up to the house and attack them. It was so awesome. I missed that game. It was a really sad day when that game ended. All right. Another game I want to shout out is Lego Star Wars: The Complete Saga. Lego Star Wars is awesome. Just the chaos of like in a cantina where you just like punch somebody and everybody just starts beating each other up. It's amazing. I'll never forget R2-D2 or Yoda's like scream when they die. Like I played the hell
I did this a lot. I did that a lot as a kid. I would just like have them die or throw them off or whatever.
So yeah, those games. There's a couple. I'm not gonna shout out every Lego Star Wars game, but like a lot of them they're great games. They're fun games. They're definitely nostalgia talking, but they're fun. What else? There's also Star Wars Rogue Squadron, which is an awesome vehicle combat game. It was on the GameCube. One of the best X-Wing games. It was so good. Usually not my kind of game, but I really like this one. It still holds up very well. I would love to see them remaster it for sure. It's a fight simulator game. Another one I want to shout out is Star Wars: The Force Unleashed 1 and 2. I think the first one doesn't. I just beat it today actually again, and it doesn't hold up that well. It's very jittery and a lot of bugs and stuff. But I love third person combat, and Force Unleashed 2. I'll just talk about Force Unleashed 2. The gameplay is so much fun because you're so OP. Like he's just like it's like a what if scenario of Jedis where just like God level, which some are technically I guess, and like the physics of just throwing people around left and right is so fun. That game still holds up. The gameplay is so much fun, even though the story is kind of nonsensical with clones and Starkiller being the guy that starts the whole rebellion was kind of goofy for me. And
yeah, another unfortunate result of a dev team being forced to rush something. I don't even think they wanted to do a sequel initially, and then they were basically forced into it because the first one was very popular. Yeah. Also want to note, by the way, that the way the sun is doing, the way the sun is going on my face is definitely some sort of meta commentary on the dark side, light side, because I've got dark over here and light over here. Anyway.
All right. Another game I want to shout out is Shadow of the Empire, which I played on Nintendo 64. I rented that on Blockbuster.
Same.
I don't know if you can play it today, but in terms of back then, though, there's parts of it I haven't played in a long time, but there's parts of it that I remember very well. I remember the Wampa. I remember the ATST boss battle. Yep. I remember the train section, the train level.
Yes. Yep. You know what? I do have one Star Wars game I want to shout out. This is so niche, but the arcade trilogy game. I don't know if you ever played that at the movie theaters.
Yep.
I love the shit out of that. One of the only like vehicle-ish games that I enjoyed. I could never beat Darth Vader at the end, but I loved so much like being in those, having like that stick and being able to shoot and like it was so cool. I think I actually went back a couple years ago when I was at like a fun zone or whatever, like one of those arcade buildings, and I actually like spent pretty much all of my money to beat. I think I did ultimately beat Darth Vader, or at least I beat all 3 levels to get to Darth Vader, and I was like, good enough. Childhood mission completed. But that shit still holds up. It's still really fun. The sound effects are there. The music is there. I mean, it all feels so lively. So yeah, very niche pick, but. Yeah, I really like that one.
Speaking of arcade, that's a good one. Speaking of arcade, there's also, you ever played the pod racing game at the arcade?
I haven't played that one.
Yeah, so
have you played? Did you play the fucking the fighting game knockoff for the PlayStation.
Oh yes, I have
that garbage game. I think we've talked about it before, actually, but that one was terrible. God,
I gotta look it up. What it's called?
Yeah, I know.
I rented it from Blockbuster.
It's got like its own unique character who's the big bad behind everything, and she sucks too, and the whole thing sucks.
Masters of Terrace Cat.
Oh my god, even the fucking title. Yes, I played that on the PS1 a lot. Not a good game, not one of my favorites, but just something I remember.
I definitely played that for sure, because I love fighting games, and I remember I was a kid. It came out 1997, and I rented it from Blockbuster. And it was hard. I remember being very hard.
Yes, it was so difficult.
I was 4 though, so maybe but it was not great. It doesn't work well. Maybe you could do a Star Wars fighting game like this correctly with the right mechanics, but not in this case. It just doesn't work. It's just like because you're not even swinging your lightsaber. It was like you're just punching with your lightsaber in your hand. So it was bad. But that's a random shout out. But the pod racing game at the arcade, like you actually had like the handles where you can move up and down. It had Anakin's pod race. I had a blast with that one at the arcade a lot. But also the pod racing game on Nintendo 64. Did you play that one?
I didn't play any of the pod racing games. No.
Oh my god, the first one on the Nintendo 64, we played the hell out of that game. That was one of the best racing games ever. It was it ran so well and played so well. You can play as any of the racers from the first movie. And I forget the name of the character. I usually use the guy that had the green pod race, and we played it was so fun. We played the hell out of that game. Like it was challenging too, because there was part like when you're in the Tatooine race and you're like through the cavern and you have to hit the yellow buttons on the side of the controller to make yourself vertical to like squeeze through the wall and stuff. It was so much fun. We played the hell out of that. So that's one of the best. They made a second one, but I didn't really play that one. So I'm only talking about the first one. Another game I want to talk about is Empire at War, which is an RTS game from like the mid 2000s. Still has a big community, or I don't know if it's big, but it still has a community that mods the hell out of this game. It's one of the best RTS games. It's so much fun playing on either side of the Rebels or Empire, and like those kind of total war kind of games. Was a bunch of things going on. You're commanding armies and they're battling each other. That game is a lot of fun. It still holds up very well. It's on sale right now for like $4. So if you're into those kind of games, definitely check it out. Almost done. Super Star Wars on the Super Nintendo. It was a side-scrolling game. Very hard. Very, very, very. Also Super Star Wars Return of the Jedi. I'll combine the two. Very hard games, but awesome side scrollers. I really liked. I played a lot on not Super Nintendo, but on a Super Nintendo emulator on my PC when I was a kid. I played that a lot. And then there was TIE Fighter. Dory mentioned games like TIE Fighter. Also, Squadrons is underrated, especially in VR. Squadrons was really cool.
That one gave me motion sickness. I really tried to get into it, but I got motion sickness trying to play it. Not even in VR, by the way. Not even in VR. I don't know. I couldn't do it. I started getting a headache.
I don't blame you. And then Star Wars Obi-Wan. That's a very underrated game. It's not. It's not a good game, but we played the hell out of it. My cousin and I on the Xbox. I think it was a OG Xbox game. I think it's one of the launch titles, a launch game. It's one of my first Xbox games ever. You play as Obi-Wan, like it takes place during episode 1, so you're like young Obi-Wan, and you can play as like all the Jedi and stuff. It was fun. It's a whole different era. Like that has that Xbox vibe to it, where everything's like dark and green. I don't know how to explain it. It's like that certain like color scheme.
Yeah.
It's not a good game, but it definitely is just a nostalgic talk for me. And I think that's pretty much it. The only thing I want to shout out one more is Star Wars Bounty Hunter, underrated game. Would you play as Jango Fett? I played it 6 years ago on PS4, and it's okay, but it is pretty fun. I really want a Bounty Hunter game. Why have we not gotten a Bounty Hunter game?
I don't understand they haven't made a Mandalorian game. I want to say the last game I will shout out, because Seb's slacking here. He's clearly forgotten the best Star Wars game. It's the Xbox Connect
I
Star Wars
was building
game.
up to it. That was gonna be my final one.
It's gonna be final
I was
one.
riding solo.
Yeah, of course. I literally heard that in Planet Fitness. I immediately texted Seb. I'm like, "You're never gonna believe me, but the Xbox Connect Han Solo rap song is playing in Planet Fitness right now. Must be because of May the 4th. I've never heard it played anywhere ever." But it just was incredible, and I immediately wanted to pull some moves, some roguish moves.
You know what's funny is I actually never played it, but I know how infinite it is. I've seen like the songs and everything, so like I just know it through that. But
yes,
have you ever played it?
I've never played it. I've seen videos and stuff, and I've heard tell.
It's just hilarious. There's no other way to explain it. It's amazing. It's so bad it's good. It's one of those things.
Yep.
All right. I think that's pretty much it. The only other one I was going to say now is Old Republic. If you're in the KOTOR games, Old Republic is the third game in the series. Old Republic's an MMO. It has Revan in it. It has like a whole DLC. There's a whole MMO. There's 10 years of storyline to get into. The gameplay, this is BioWare. Well, not BioWare. EA, but is it BioWare? I think it is BioWare. Yeah. Anyway, it's an MMO, basically KOTOR. And there's elements of it that still hold up really, really well, and it's free to play on Steam. You do need to pay $15 a month if you want to unlock other things, but if you really want to get a great Star Wars story where you can play as a Sith or a clone trooper or a trooper, bounty hunter, Imperial agent, things like that, definitely check it out. It's like I said, it's free to play. You just play the base game and enjoy that if you're into Star Wars stories. So yeah, that's pretty much all the Star Wars games. I hit on a lot of them, and Dory hit on all the ones I would say as well. Like that's pretty much all the best Star Wars games, I think.
Yeah.
There's a lot more, but not all of them are great. So
yeah,
I think we hit on all the good ones. If we missed any, put them in the comments, but I think we hit on the best of the best for sure. All right, so May the 4th be with everyone. And
watch out for the Revenge of the 5th.
Yes. So tomorrow is Revenge of the 5th, so watch out. And I don't know what I'm gonna do this weekend. Maybe I want to keep watching Star Wars all weekend. Maybe keep playing some Star Wars games. Any Star Wars plans this weekend for you?
I currently have no Star Wars plans. I didn't really plan anything out in advance. But maybe if Kim wants to, we'll watch something on Disney Plus.
Maybe I would have a little mini marathon. Maybe I'll watch Phantom Menace and watch the prequels. I haven't watched them in a while.
I will pray for your soul.
It's so nostalgic for me that I forgive the bad stuff. So anyway, thanks for watching. You all have a good night. And peace.